If you're single and joining the United States Army on active duty as a lower enlisted soldier, you're going to be living in the barracks. And currently, you might be living maybe in an apartment, maybe you're living with your parents, but nonetheless, you may want to know what is the comparison to living in the barracks in the United States Army compared to maybe living in a civilian apartment. Let me break that down for you. Married soldiers, officers, senior enlisted soldiers, they don't live in the barracks, right? They're going to live in on-post housing or off-post housing, whatever they want to choose to do. If you don't fall in one of those categories, you're a single soldier, lower enlisted, E4 and below, E5 and below, really, even a lot of times E6 and below, you're going to be living in the barracks. One of the biggest differences if you're living in the barracks in the Army compared to living in an apartment on the civilian side is the cost. Because if you're living in those Army barracks, it's free. You don't pay anything, right? You don't pay rent. You don't pay utilities. You're in those civilian apartments, you got rent, you got utilities to pay. Key example, it's really hot outside. You want to leave that AC on all day? You can do that. You want to leave the heater on all day because it's really cold outside, right? It's the opposite. You can leave it on all day if you really want to, right? Sometimes they do regulate as far as like how you can set the temperature in the barracks, but nonetheless, you want to run it all day, you can do that. You want to leave the lights on all day, you can do that. No change, no cost, it's still going to cost you anything, but if you do it on the civilian side, you're going to probably have a pretty high utility bill. If you're going to be living in an apartment, you're probably going to have it nicer than you would in the barracks in the Army because of a lot of amenities that you have at the apartment that you don't often have in an Army barracks. Key example of that is probably like an oven or a cooktop. Not going to have that in the barracks, in most barracks anyways. There are some that are starting to get with the times and are starting to kind of incorporate that into the barracks, but I won't say it's all of them. It's probably a small percentage. Compared to all the barracks, most of the barracks probably don't have those cooktops or ovens, but some of them are starting to update to have that. But in a civilian apartment, you're probably going to be guaranteed to have that. Washers and dryers is another one, right? Probably pretty common to have that in an apartment where it's actually pretty rare. I've actually not going to say it's impossible because I have heard some soldiers say that they did have washers and dryers in their barracks at certain locations, but I will not say it's a wide thing, right? It may just kind of vary from unit to unit, location to location, but probably expect that you're probably not going to have a washer and dryer inside your barracks. A dishwasher is another one I've heard a lot of people like wish they had in the barracks that they don't usually have. I mean, there's some apartments that don't have dishwashers either, but nonetheless, these amenities, right, are some common things that you might get in a civilian apartment because it's just common things you have in an apartment where they're not really allowed in the barracks, not really installed in the barracks. Some of the newer ones are starting to have that stuff, and if you get those ones, awesome, that's great, but there's also a good chance you could get the older-ish style barracks that don't include those, that maybe just have a refrigerator and a microwave, and you know, if you got to do your laundry, you got to go downstairs to a laundry room, and that's probably pretty common. For my viewers out there that are currently in the Army, maybe recently were in the Army, let me know, what did your barracks have? Did your barracks have any of these amenities? I know some of them, like I said, are starting to get cooktops, maybe some of them starting to get the washers and dryers, but let me know in the comment section down below, what did your barracks have? Because my barracks had nothing but a microwave and a refrigerator, but those were fairly old barracks, and some of those are starting to kind of phase out. Now, if you haven't noticed, I got a nice stylish watch here. This is the Vaer. They sponsored this video, and this is the Vaer C5 Tactical Field Solar Watch. And just like the name, this watch is solar powered, so all you got to do is just get out in the sunlight, charge it up. It's always recharging. Vaer watches are assembled in the United States and blend a World War II style dial arrangement with a modern blacked out look. If you take in the dark, the dials and the numbers even glow. I know some people like smart watches and stuff, but especially with the military, that's not always an option that you can have. So you don't have to settle for some cheapo watch. You can get a really nice watch that has a great style to it, but it's also tactically friendly. The watch is waterproof and uses a premium sapphire crystal to protect it against scratches. So if you want to take it out in the field, you get a little bit rough with it, you're being protected. I will say, even though it looks like a very simple watch, it's not. It's a very premium feel to it. I mean, when I first took it out of the box and checked it out, this thing, you could tell, was a very premium style watch. So if you're interested in the watch, I'll have a link down in the description box down below for you to check out the Vaer C5. Check it out. It's a badass watch. A nice thing if you're going to be living in the barracks compared to on the civilian side is Army barracks are partially furnished. You're probably not going to get that on the civilian side. You're probably going to have to buy all your furniture, where in Army barracks, you're going to probably have the bed, you're going to get a desk, you get like a dresser, you get a chair for that desk, right? There may be some other things you need to buy, like it's not going to come with a TV and certain other amenities, but the bare basics you need: a bed to sleep in, a desk to maybe put your computer at or something like that, or somewhere to rest a TV on or wherever. That's all going to be covered. It's already going to be included. You don't need to go buy that furniture. So that's a pretty good, nice thing on the Barracks side, right? Having it at least partially furnished for the key things that you need. You can get all the rest of the things as you go. A civilian apartment, right? It's probably going to be bare bone, nothing. You got to buy a bed, you got to buy a mattress, you got to buy everything, right? So that's going to cost you money to have to do that. Not going to have to cost you anything living in the barracks. If you're going to be living in some civilian apartments versus some Army barracks, well, those civilian apartments probably don't invade on your privacy, don't have as many restrictions as the barracks have. In the barracks, you're going to have things like barracks inspections. You get health and welfare, where your leadership's going to come check on you, see how you're living, check to see how clean you're kind of living, type of thing. Where on the civilian side, right, in those civilian apartments, you don't have to worry about that. You shouldn't have to worry about that, right? Barracks, you do have to worry about that. It does vary as far as how often you may have to worry about that, right? It may be monthly, weekly, every couple of months. It really depends on the leadership and how often they're kind of doing it. But nonetheless, it does happen, and it's going to happen while you're living in the barracks, where it's not going to happen living in those apartments. Also in the barracks, when you're a lower enlisted soldier, you probably got a roommate. You probably don't have the same room. You probably have separate rooms, but nonetheless, you got to share that kitchen space with them. You got to share that, bathroom with them, clean that bathroom with them. They could be leaving messes. They could be loud in their room, whatever the case is, where you could possibly just have your own apartment if you wish to do so, right? You don't typically get your own barracks room until you get up and rank a little bit higher, like an E5 or an E6. Also, those are restrictions in the barracks. You can't have overnight guests. You want to have family come visit, boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever, come visit and hang out in the barracks and spend the night with you. You can't do that in the barracks. You can't have any overnight visitors. In an apartment, your parents, whoever want to come visit you, you can have them sleep over, right? You can have an extra room. You can have them sleep on the couch or whatever the case is. Boyfriend, girlfriend sleeping with you or whatever. You can do that in civilian apartments. Can't do that in the barracks. In fact, you usually have to check them in at the CQ desk, which is the desk at the front lobby of the barracks, to make sure they're of age, because you're not allowed to have minors inside of your barracks room, unless they're family, I believe. But otherwise, outside of family, you're not allowed to have minors in the barracks. So because of that, they're going to check to make sure you're not bringing minors into the barracks. So regardless, right, you're bringing in your boyfriend, girlfriend that's 20 years old, whatever, the same age as you type of thing, they still got to get checked to make sure they're not minors. Even if that's a brother, a sister, a mom, a dad, whatever, they got to get checked through that CQ desk. You don't have anything like that on a civilian apartment. No pets allowed in the barracks apartment. You can have pets as long as they have a pet policy. You may have to pay a little extra for the pets, but barracks, it doesn't matter. You can't pay any extra. No pets, no snakes, no dogs, no cats, no goldfish, nothing. And then last one on that kind of topic is no firearms. If you have a pistol, rifle, you go hunting, target practice, whatever, can't have that stuff in the barracks. Civilian apartments, you can have that stuff stored depending on state laws. You probably have it locked up wherever the case is, but nonetheless, you can have it inside your civilian apartment. But it doesn't matter how you can store it inside the barracks. It's not allowed in the barracks, period. Now, if you're hearing some of this stuff and you're like, I don't want to live in the barracks, I want to get the hell out of the barracks as soon as possible. It is possible to be able to do that. And if you want to learn how that can possibly happen, I got a video right here that you can check out next and watch how you can possibly get out of the barracks without having to get married. Check that video out. Make sure you're subscribed. Thanks for watching. I'm Christopher Chaos. I'll see you next time. See ya.